There has been a lot of hullabaloo about the changes in the way Pond 5, Motion Array, Identify, and really any library are paying people who license their music through these places. And so as I was contemplating a music licensing deal this week with a specific library, I started comparing really all the music licensing deals to each other, sync deals and stock music deals, other music licensing deals that I'd come across, other sites that take your music and do stuff with it and pay you something or other. Heck, we could even get into Spotify and how they pay. Do you really want to go down that road? Or what about record deals these days? 360 deals? 540 deals? If you live in Nashville, the 840 deal? It's an inside joke. But as I was comparing licensing deals, I noticed that almost no publishing deal or licensing deal is all that great. Or are they? I heard recently from someone who is literally getting $750 to $1,500 per song upfront to make music for a library and getting 100% writers and 50% sync. Not bad, but probably isn't albums at a time. It's probably a song every once in a while. And that's about the best deal I've heard of until I talked to my guest today, and it's really kind of terrible, and I think he'll tell you why. So how much are you making in music licensing deal? Most likely, you're working for free. We're going to talk about this today. Making music you love and you hope will get accepted to a library and then get paid, or get a placement, get paid in months or years. Is that a great deal? Gee, that doesn't sound very fun. I thought music licensing was the way to make music income. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Eric Copeland, and, we've been talking a lot about music incomes, and this month I am specifically focusing on what's happening in 2025 in the constantly changing world of music income, including music licensing, music royalties, being a music composer, arranger, producer, artist. I'm going to talk about that today. Sheet music, and is there any other way that I've made music, or in this case, my guest today's way that they've made music income. And right now you're saying, who is we? Do you have a mouse in your pocket? Ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce you to, my name, where you can find stuff from me, but I want to introduce you to somebody I just learned about this week. I got this random email from some kid on YouTube who said, and I had never even been suggested their channel before, and I was a little shocked because he was talking about some cool stuff, including sync licensing, and that's one of the things he's involved in. And I should have been sent that stuff. So one of the reasons we're doing this today is because I want you to know about him, and I want you to know about his channel, because I think my audience would really enjoy his audience as well. So we got to talking on Zoom, and now I'll introduce someone you should know if you don't know already. And I didn't know before Wednesday, Nashville producer, songwriter, engineer, sync licensing guru, and the man behind his own self-named YouTube channel, Christian Hale. Christian, welcome to the show, man.
Man, thanks so much for having me. Apologies in advance. I am finishing getting over sick, so we'll see how the voice holds up. But big fan of what you're doing with Make Music Income. I was not familiar with your channel until the last month or so. You're coming at it from a slightly different angle than I am, so I thought it was a no-brainer to reach out and have this conversation, and so really looking forward to it.
Cool. Sweet. Well, you'll find all sorts of stuff. I'll show you a little bit about Christian in a minute, his site and his YouTube channel, but you need to go over there and subscribe for sure, because he's got a lot of good information there. As usual, this show is sponsored by MakeMusicIncome.com/free, and you can go there and get free stuff. But guess where else you can get free stuff, ladies and gentlemen? You can get it right here at Christian's site, christianhale.co. And I thought I had a lot of free stuff. I thought I had a lot of free little PDFs and stuff, and he's got a lot. So yeah, you should definitely take a look at Christian stuff. But you know, one of the things that I do on this podcast, for good or bad, Christian, every week is I kind of talk about my week. And I think it's interesting when people meet people like you and me and they go, what? How do they make money? Because like me, you have no other like job as far as, I mean, your wife has a job and so does mine, but as far as your income, it's all basically music. So what's your week been like this week? I know you've been sick, but what's been going on with you? What are you working on this week here up in Nashville, by the way?
Yeah, in the burbs outside of snowy Nashville.
Which way? I forgot to ask you that.
South. I'm at Thompson Station, Spring Hill area, so
That's
just
me.
south of Franklin.
That's where I was.
Yeah, down in Wilco. So, yeah, like Eric said, and like I said, finishing getting sick, and my 1-year-old son and wife also being sick. So it hasn't been the most productive work week to start the year, but started out the week honestly with a bang. Had my first sync placement of the year, which was a national broadcast Toyota ad campaign, which we're always really grateful for those. That was something I did 100% myself, own all the master and all the publishing and all the writer share on that. Just had a licensing rep work that. So that ad went live on Sunday or Monday, I'm not sure which. So like I said, we're always really grateful when those things happen, because those of us that do this thing, do sync, do anything in the music business, know that we never count our chickens before they hatch. A lot of things can and do fall through, and it really is a minor miracle when any sync comes out and sees the light of day. It doesn't matter if it pays $10 or tens of thousands of dollars. So always an extreme amount of gratitude for those things. But then kind of took it easy this week, recovered, was a dad, was a husband, which, you know, we have the flexibility to do some of those things with the music job. So I think we need to take advantage of that sometimes and not just completely hole up in the studio. Yeah. And then started working on a song. You know, one of the things I'm doing this year is I set a quota for myself. We can get into this a little bit, but I am, for various projects and niches and things I'm involved in, doing on average one song a week, written, produced, mixed, mastered at the absolute highest quality I possibly can for the target I'm shooting at. So it's the first week of the year. I got a little bit of a head start on that quota last year, you know, in December. So I'm actually a little bit ahead of schedule, but I'm just kind of working through the thing I'm targeting for that this week. No co-writes, just working on stuff myself this week. So it's a little bit of what the week's been. No
clients. Sounds like just working on something of yours.
Yeah, I've, you know, we can get into that too, but have really worked over the last couple of years to pretty much eliminate clients unless it's something I choose to take on. And like you said in the beginning, music is my full-time job. It really, aside from working at a restaurant in college, which I dropped out of, music in various forms and fashions is the only full-time job I've had. I grew up in Lincoln, Nebraska, I dropped out of college. My parents thought I was absolutely crazy pursuing this music career thing. It wasn't like I had some inside track to the music industry. Despite my baby face, I'm now 30. So it's been like a 10 plus year, just incremental grind of, you know, making literally no money to now, you know, pretty good income just from music. So
yeah, when I met you, I was like, you said 10 years or whatever. And I was like, when did you start? When you were 9? And he said, no, I'm actually 30 years old. I'm like, oh, okay.
Hey, and when you hit 30, you're officially grateful for those "you look young" comments. So yeah. I appreciate it. What's your week been like, man? Aside from talking to me on Wednesday and again on a Friday.
Well, I have been in brief land. I won't call it brief hell or brief. I mean, it's just a matter of I'm in 4 different briefs right now, and it's been that way for about a month, 5 or 6 briefs. And I am not a brief person. In other words, briefs. I've said this before. It's one of my lines here on the show, but briefs chafe me, and so I just don't. I don't like having. It's too much like work. You know, it's like a client coming and saying, I want this, and make it just like that. And then you make it like you think they want. And then you find out that's not what they wanted at all. And you got to redo stuff. and then someone is disappointed, and it's usually me. But I enjoy making albums and then pitching that to somebody, or making a song and pitching that to somebody that they weren't expecting. They had no preconceived ideas of what it should sound like, because it's really dangerous when someone gives you a demo and then they say, make it sound like this big song on the radio, and the two songs are not exactly go together. And then so you have to find this middle place where the song kind of sounds like that, but it also sounds like the song. And you have to get clients have to be willing to deal with that. So I hope that once this month is over, I put one brief off a little bit. It's a 10-song project, and it's going fine. It's just I'm not quite like loving having to make it on demand versus what I've always done in sync before, is just make the albums I want, with either by myself or with clients or partners, and then pitch that, and people go, whoa, I never saw that coming. I love it. And that's a much better feeling than someone come back saying, that wasn't exactly what I was going for. And you're like, wow, how am I going to turn this car around?
One thing on briefs from my experience, and I'm sure in the episode we'll get into some of the lanes you do in sync as opposed to me, which are kind of different things, but even coming at it from different angles, I would say been fortunate to have had a bunch of placements, ads, TVs, trailer, promo, the whole thing. And I would say maybe 5% or less of the placements I've had have been writing for a brief. The vast, vast majority is I go write a song, make it as good as I possibly can, shooting for a target, and then at some point in time, it sees the light of day. So I totally agree. I think spinning your wheels on briefs, like, it can maybe be good for a phase, like when you're just starting out, but I think it can be a little crippling for sure.
Or you thrive on organization and being a knowing, because a brief is also, that people would tell me, a brief is also something that it's not a guess. It's not I always call a brief, especially the bigger briefs that are sent around to everybody, and I call it an if. If you take out the BRE it's an if. It might be something that gets used. We have enough ifs in sync, much less needed to compete for a spot with 1,000 other people. And so the other thing is that I just it's not good creatively for me, and I have ideas all day long. That's my wife. It's like, she's like tired of hearing about it. She's hearing me talking, singing to my phone all the time, and she's like, ugh. But I just have these ideas that come to me every minute of the day and night. And I write them down, and then I come back to them, and I make it happen. That's not the way briefs usually are. Briefs are, okay, you have this thing, you got to write to this thing. But I will tell you this. I do know people who make their living supplying libraries. They get a brief, they work on a brief every day, and that brief is a probable placement, or at least it's most likely going to be in the library, because that library got this writer who is one of their writers to do this brief specifically. Like, I've had people come to me specifically. I'm in the middle of some of those right now. They didn't come to anybody else. There's not a brief to anybody else except me. And so that kind of brief is a song that is going to get in the library, as long as they like it. It's going to get in the library, and it's going to be something they pitch because they came looking for it exactly for that. Sometimes even for a specific show. Yeah. And so I know people who do that, and that's part of how they've amassed 2,000 or 3,000 songs that are in libraries, so that they are making double six figures or more just from all of these uses from these. And many of those, half of those could have been briefs that they worked on every day. And some people do that. Yeah.
For sure. I think a good tip, approaching it, because I don't really do the library thing. We can talk a little bit more about it.
Yeah, we will.
I have sync reps and different people that kind of represent my catalog. So I'm not so much doing the volume thing. So I think because of that, one tip that I think you can employ, whether you're doing more my route or more Eric's route of library, is even if you are writing for a brief, when I do step into that world, I'm always thinking in the back of my mind, let's make this a song that sure serves that brief, but also serves any future need. Like, I think that's how you can do it effectively, where you can write for the brief, try to hit that nail on the head. But like, if it's a lyric, for instance, or a production choice, for instance, in the brief, that it's like, if it's not for this very, very specific thing, wasted the day and the song's toast. Like, I'm not interested in doing that. I don't personally think that's a good use of time. But if it's a thing where it's like, optimistic, hopeful, non-romantic love song that is a thing that's probably going to show up over and over, I think those are ways that you can do it effectively, where you're serving the brief, but then serving your future catalog as well.
Yeah, and you can accept that brief or not. You don't have to take it, and you could tell people, here's what it's going to take for me to make that brief. I mean, that might require a band, or that might require certain singers I don't have and stuff like that. So, all right. And so, yeah, that's been my week. I've also, I did, like you, I'm in I need to do this, and this per week to accomplish my personal goals. And one of those is to create more sheet music, and more songs that go to sheet music. Now, I also put them in stock music, but we're going to talk about, rather disparagingly probably today, we're going to talk about stock music, because you have your own stock music experience. And so I want to talk about where you are with your particular thing. But I created a song this week, just a piano song, and then I made sheet music for it, and I have some people helping me make sheet music for my songs that are kind of my partners as well. And my goal is just to get a lot more of that out there. I think it's an untapped market, especially for my solo piano stuff, which I do a lot of, and my classical stuff and arrangements that I do a lot of. And to be honest, if I just didn't need a lot of money, I would be sitting around doing a lot more classical and a lot more ensemble work and piano work and creating sheet music for the stage. I think we've forgotten about sheet music for the stage. We also seem to forget about that half of the world in music, if not more, looks at sheet music every day, every time they play a song. They don't like just need it for a TV show. That's a specific. I mean, we talk about sync licensing, like everybody in the music world does it. But if you go to any college, nobody is thinking about sync licensing. Nobody is thinking about licensing of any kind. They're thinking about Roman numerals theory, and they're thinking about how they can get their next composition played on a stage, on the biggest stage possible, and that's as big a thing as our music business. We just, as music business people, we just think, oh, it's all about sync licensing and Spotify and being artists and all that kind of stuff. But we're going to talk about all that. So that's about kind of where my week has been. Real quickly, before we move on, let me just see who is here. Sound Grips, are you able to see the thing? Okay, good. Sound Grips says, good afternoon. Daydreams from Germany is in the house. Good to see you. Alex Gillette, good talking to you this week. Lovely Fishing Rod always has interesting comments. I love the intro music when you start your live stream. Oh, good. Lewis Moore, we just put out a single recently. Congratulations. Greetings. Bradford says, here for the cookies and the stinger. Well, the new stinger we probably won't do today, unless I can fit it in somehow. But he also says, hit the thumbs up, people, which is a good idea. Give Christian a good thumbs up for being here today. That would be a nice little thing, because I really do want people to see this video and know about what he's doing. Corey says, hi. Here's a question for you. Benjamin says, Christian, what camera are you using?
Benjamin, my man, good to see you. He's a loyal subscriber to my channel. So great to see you over here supporting this channel. It's a Sony ZV-E10, and I'll drop in the comments below. I have, it's a certain lens. I have an Amazon cart because I get asked this periodically. So I have all the camera stuff that I use in an Amazon cart. So I'll drop that. I'm a bad multitasker. So once we're done talking, I'll go drop that link here in the chat, and you can go see exactly what I use.
Cool. We also have Mirage that says, hello. Ron Patton, longtime listener, saying hi. And Tara says, hi, everyone. So we've got some people here. We've got about 22 here in the chat. So, all right. So it is time. Without further ado, my fans are looking and say, it's only 24 after, and you're going to get to the topic. But I am. I want to get in, because we have a lot to talk about today. And I want to get to our subject of the day, and that this is just something that came to me as usual with this show. I sometimes will get done with my Friday show, and I'll go, I'm never doing another show again. I'm done with you two. I'm just tired. I'm not gonna do another one. And then I get an idea for something, and it kind of like consumes me. And one of the things that I was thinking about this week as I kind of came across, I was talking about a deal, and I started comparing deals because I was feeling like this deal I was in was not very good. There's also been all of the, like I said at the beginning, hullabaloo about Motion Array changing the way it pays its authors. Pond 5 just took 5% away from all its authors. Some of the other big ones have changed. Artlist has closed. MusicBed continues to take theirs down. Everybody is changing the deal on the people that are in there, unless you're grandfathered into some deal or something. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I started thinking, you know what? Are any music deals any good? I mean, we talk about licensing all the time because probably for you and I, that's mostly, a good amount. I do want to talk about the way you make music income because it's different than the way I do, and it probably different than a lot of the people who watch this channel who have up to now been people in the making some decent money in like stock music libraries and stuff. But I think they're starting to know and see, hey, I might need to do something else. I might need to get into some of the others. And it's been like pulling teeth to introduce Spotify to this channel, or introduce being an artist to this channel, or introduce even, I think people are interested in sheet music because, again, it's one of those super passive things. You make sheet music, you put it out there, you wait for money to come in. Even trying to convince people to be music producers and produce music for other people to make money today and this week, rather than waiting for next month or next year to make money from something. So let's talk about the type of deals that are out there, and we're just going to go through these really rapid fire kind of artist and record deals. Where do they stand today as far as your understanding in Nashville that you're seeing? Because you work with lots of different artists and have probably been offered these deals or been part of these deals. So,
yeah, I mean, and maybe just a little bit of context of how I'm speaking into this. So I've done all sorts of deals in music. I've spent a lot of money on entertainment attorneys because of the variety and different types of deals that I've done and continue to do. So just for context, I've done an exclusive worldwide publishing deal. I've done an admin deal. I've done multiple distribution deals. I've done multiple sync deals. I've done multiple major label producer agreements and independent artist producer agreements. So I've lived it, seen it, breathed it. Like I know the game. I think a broader way to answer the question would be define good deal. And as somebody who is, kind of OCD and anal and reads every word of a contract and honestly kind of likes to negotiate and in another life would have enjoyed being an entertainment attorney. Even as somebody through that lens, I think something to keep in mind is a good deal can look a lot of different ways to a lot of different people based on your scenario, your phase of life, your season. Yeah. And so sometimes like what might actually like objectively be kind of a crappy deal could be a good deal for you for a time. If like what I think of as an example of that is like, are we going to talk about publishing deals? Because I'll give this example in publishing deals. So I'll really give this example in publishing deals. But sometimes if it's something that can get you in the game you're trying to get into and you have nothing going on, let's say, like even if the terms are crappy for a phase, sometimes it's worth like entering into that agreement, knowing what you're entering into, like not being negligent about it, but knowing what you're signing, knowing what you're agreeing to, if it can help get you from here to here. And that doesn't mean it's a forever thing, but I don't know. Sometimes good deals aren't always that black and white because we're all in different phases, all have different, needs, wants, whatever. But as far as record deals go, and as somebody that's produced for artists on record deals, I think it is the best time in the history of the world to be an independent artist. Meaning an artist not signed to a record label. And I have two main reasons why. Number one is distribution. What did distribution used to mean, back in the day? It used to mean physically going and printing a product and physically shipping it out worldwide to Walmart and Circuit City and Best Buy and all those places.
And
of
you
old
couldn't
record
just do
stores.
that on your own.
No,
Like-
what did you need? What did you need to get those purchase orders and front the money for that? You needed a bank, otherwise known as a record label.
And a
The other
distributor.
thing, the other thing was promotion back in the day, pre-internet, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. We can just get on here and create our own audiences. You needed traditional forms of promotion, traditionally historically known as radio promotion, which if you don't know,
Or
promoting
music
your song
video promotion.
yeah, if you don't know, promoting your song on radio, even with the perceptionally the impact of radio diminishing worldwide, it is ungodly expensive to get your song played on the radio.
Where is it now?
So
About $4,000 still? would you say?
It depends on the format. Like Christian radio is going to be cheaper than country radio. That's going to be different than rap. It's going to be different than pop. I mean, you can be several hundred. Like I think country radio is a 6-figure investment to get your song on the radio. I think pop radio is probably a 7-figure investment. Don't fully quote me on that, but like. So if you're trying to go play those traditional games of traditional distribution and traditional promotion, you had to have those big entities, the majors with the wallet and the relationships to get your music in those channels. But what does distribution and promotion mean today in 2025? Well, distribution means that you can go upload your song on DistroKid or CD Baby or wherever it is, and you can get your music on Apple Music, Spotify, Pandora, all the same places the major labels can get their music on. And promotion, I don't listen to the radio. I don't know if you listen to music on the radio. Most people I know don't listen to music on the radio. They find artists on social media, on Spotify algorithm. There's all these things we can do in the age of the internet to promote our music, without
I will say
having
this.
to
I taught average age 25 years old to my 10 to 20 person classes for the past 2 years at a recording school before recently. And we had a thing on radio we had to talk about at some point, and I would ask all of them, how many people listen to the radio in this day and age? And I have to tell you, at least half of them raised their hands, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, it is. It's still a thing, but if you look at the cost to if you look at like how much money you have to front to break through on that, like when it works, it can be slam dunk home run, like 1 in a billion.
Sure.
But that's not the only way anymore. In fact, there's thousands of other ways.
I would think meta ads would be a better deal for most artists anyway.
There's limitless. So I'd say all that to say, when you enter a record deal, you are handing off ownership of your masters, your sound recording to that record label. And Spotify and Apple and these places, it's all a little different, but on average pays about $3,000 to $4,000 per million streams to the master sound recording owner. They pay significantly less to the songwriters and music publishers. That's a separate discussion. But record labels love streaming. They may not come out and say it, but record labels would say streaming saved the record and record deal industry because it pays so much more than it pays songwriters.
But let's talk about the deal though itself.
Yeah.
What is the 360 deal pretty much the standard deal these days with record deals?
To my knowledge, no. I think the 360 deal has gone away a little bit. In fact, it's not necessarily, all of this can be different, but I think these record deals are more and more, it's like not album cycles, it'll be number of singles. So like maybe we're going to get you, and a traditional deal, just so you know, you have 100% of the master. You're typically assigning that master over to the record label. They're going to front the money for, control it 100%, and then they're going to give you artist a royalty. Typically, that's like 16 to 20% of the pie. So generous, I know. And then, hey, because we're also so generous, and I have lots of friends at labels, love you guys if you're watching, but we're also so
today
generous
is not going to be necessarily one that helps all our relationships, and then because we're going to be kind of talking about things that are like
I've had this conversation with friends at labels of like, I've asked some of my A&R friends, like, why should this artist sign to you? They have this thing going on themselves. Like, they don't necessarily need you. Yeah. And labels are less and less in the development business now. They want to jump onto a ship that's already moving. So if your goal is to get signed buy a record label, what I would tell you is go do the same things I would tell somebody if their goal is to be the biggest independent artist in the world. Go create your own buzz and momentum anyways. But so in the traditional record deal, you're given 100% of the master to the record label. They're giving you a 16 to 20% royalty, and then you have to take your royalty and give some of that to the producer. So, on average, traditionally, in the kind of traditional system, you as the artist, after you go recoup the money, so you don't get $1 beforehand. So if a label fronts you $100K, let's say, for cost, marketing, promotion, whatever, the first $100,000 you make back, you don't get any of. $100,000 in one, you're getting like 15% of the pie. I don't know. You ask me, is that a good deal? Yeah. Or there's more and more 50-50 deals starting to show up because I think labels are seeing that artists aren't needing the labels like they used to.
Well, and there's things like production deals, publicity deals, promotional deals, booking deals. There are all sorts of probably different deals depending on how much the artist does themselves and needs. They're almost like not a bank as much as they are become a service company, just like I've been always in my career. They're like, we can provide you these services. 100.
And where I would say record deals are still a good thing is I think of country music, or I think of top 40 pop music. If your goal is to step into one of those arenas that's hyper competitive, hyper huge market where it's here's the path. You want to be an A-list country artist, you just go do this thing down country radio, and it kind of looks one way for everyone. We have these relationships, we have these formulas, and you can be one of the 1% biggest artists in the world. Labels are great for that, I think. But if you want to go create a good lifestyle, making I've numerous friends who are independent artists making multiple six figures a year from streaming alone, fully independent or maybe independent with a premium distributor taking 10 to 20% to help get them on playlists. Why would they or should they sign a record deal? So it's just all about what you want. But so kind of putting it all together, it's all about your phase of life. Maybe it's for you, maybe it's not, but I think it's super advantageous to be an independent artist now because there's less barrier for entry and because the master pays on streaming.
And because you can do that to further a sync career, as we'll talk about here in a minute.
100.
Sheet music sales and deals are odd online. They're very much like Spotify, although Hal Leonard has opened up a arrangeme.com to try to bring everything under one roof as much as possible. There are several other publishers who do this. And those deals aren't so great. I mean, you get, if you do a cover arrangement, you only get 10% of the, I think it's 10% of the take unless you buy their special thing. And then you get 12%. Wow, what a great increase for paying them. But, and then I think it's 50-50 on anything that's original or public domain arrangements that you put up. So if you put up a $50 arrangement, like I have some of my ensemble stuff up at $50, then I'll get $25 of that. And you can do even bigger arrangements for bands, for high school bands and high school choirs and church choirs and all that kind of stuff. And you can make something in that. So those deals are also good. But really what I want to get to today is, because we could talk about all kinds of deals inside. We could have just done an hour just on what you were just talking about, but as far as artist deals. But I think most people on this channel want to know more about publishing and licensing deals. And this is what really, this almost was called, are there any good licensing deals? Because but I just started thinking about all the other things, and we're not even going to get into Spotify and how it pays and all that kind of stuff. Then you get into, well, how much does Spotify pay versus Apple, and how much does Apple pay versus Amazon, and all these things. And we're not going to get into that. But I do want to get into publishing and licensing deals because this is what I deal with on a daily basis. You probably deal with this somewhat on a daily basis. The deals you get for doing a song, you hand it off to whoever you're handing it off to. In your case, it's likely a sync rep. In my case, it's likely a library. And then they tell you, okay, and sometimes the briefs come in like this. Here's the brief and here's the deal. And you're like, well, that's not a very good deal. I'm not even making 100% of the writers. That is a problem. But when we get into the three basic deals I want to talk about. One we're going to talk about super fast. He said that before, but I mean it this time. And that is stock music deals. And stock music can mean anything from, I mean, really, all libraries are stock music libraries. They have a stock of music, even sync libraries. They have it's like where you go to license a song. But I'm talking about the Pond 5s, the motion arrays, the audio jungles, and the all the other things that we see, even up to places. Well, I used to call with my my partner Steve. We always called them mid-tier stock libraries because they kind of serve probably YouTube users, user-generated content people, and maybe TV, at the same time. And so I call so places like this are a place you're involved in, which is MusicBed, or also Artlist, and also, I mean, there's a bunch of them that you could go through. I have seen recently, and there's been a lot of discussion on our Discord about, the motion arrays prices, which are just shockingly changed to the point where likely everyone will get about half of what they made before on a monthly basis. But, when you live in a free market system, you always are going to have to deal with that. Our gas prices and our food prices and everything, they can change at any time. And we can be mad about it. We can certainly be mad about it. And we can complain about it. We can go to our congressman and go right directly to the companies and protest and all this kind of stuff. But I'm going to talk about this more as the month goes, but I think stock music in the bottom of it, the Pond 5s, the Audio Jungle and Pond 5, which are both dead, that has changed so much it's almost impossible to make any money there, except for now their AI stuff that they're trying to pay you for. And then Motion Array, which is kind of Artlist light, is really looking for the premium author and not, the person who's only getting them a couple downloads a month. And so they're kind of penalizing the person, really like me, who only gets about 300 downloads a month, and they're looking for the people who get 2,000 and reward the people who get 5,000 a month, because that's the people that are really making the money for the library. So they're rewarding the people who make the most. Tell us about, since you're involved in a mid-tier type of library that's kind of literally a stock library, they probably still use the word stock music on their site. Tell us about your deal with MusicBed.
Yeah, MusicBed probably would not say that they're a stock library. What they would say is, they have a bunch of this. They would say that, I would say in the online direct-to-license library marketplace, they're probably the most premium. I just have one project at MusicBed. It's actually the minority of my sync catalog, and then I'm a collaborator on some friends, just like one-off songs there. MusicBed would say they're trying to sign real bands, real artists. And,
I think everybody is.
Yeah, for sure. And that's a big, have that whole conversation, all day long. So my deal with MusicBed is it's a percentage deal. Everything that's like subscription or direct to license on the site, they get a percentage of, it's like 50-50 or 60-40 in my favor, something like that. The deals have changed. I don't know what my agreement says. I can't say, but somewhere in that ballpark. Then anything maybe like $400 and over, or that goes through like the custom people, I get a higher percentage of. In my mind, because my percentage with my direct to licensing rep is a lot better than that. That's an example of, and I keep all the publishing of the PROs and all the songwriting PROs. So it's just a split off the top on licenses that come in through the site. And then I get all the back end royalties, and then they take a percentage of content ID. They go collect all that, which they're really good at. So yeah, that's just a split off the top, and an example of, like I said, a little higher than I would probably prefer. So like back to the whole thing is like, is there a good deal in music? Like, I don't know. In some ways I would say a 50-50 deal is a crap deal. Yeah. But in other ways, like, I can see how much I've made over a year or multiple years at MusicBed. And like something I remind myself of a lot, and I see this with people, like they enter an agreement, they have nothing going on, then 2 or 3 or 4 years in, they start making money from that deal, and they're like, holy crap, like They made how much off of me? I didn't know they were going to do that. I like to remind myself, don't count the money in someone else's pocket. Count the money in your own pocket.
Yeah.
Don't get fixated on like what you could have made if you whatever. Like, I think there's a fundamental foundational belief with that too, of like, it's a scarcity mindset versus an abundance mindset of like, that was my best work, I'll never be able to recreate again, and you got to hold on tight with some of that stuff, as opposed to like, you know what, my best songs are ahead of me. I genuinely believe that. I think I know you do too, and like, I think you have to believe that if you're crazy enough to step into this industry. So I think pairing that with these deals, like, that's where I'm like, it's not as black and white of like, does 10% more make it a good deal or a bad deal? But that is what my deal looks like at MusicBed. It's just a percentage.
And you've seen that deal change, not necessarily for you because you locked in to a certain rate, but where are they now? Do you have any idea? For new people?
Maybe 50-50. And MusicBed is extraordinarily difficult. They decline.
Yeah, it's hard to get
high percentage because they really, really prioritize quality. And
Can you see my screen now with the screen share?
I can.
It literally says, explore the largest collection of cinematic music curated for film, TV, and advertising. So they are literally pointing themselves towards sync rather than other UGC stuff.
And my Toyota national ad campaign I just got from MusicBed. Nice. So that my project on MusicBed is called Christian Wade. It's my first and middle name. It's primarily an ambient instrumental project, and then I do some other spinoffs on instrumental. So you can go check that out. That's, like I said, just one of the many things I do.
Does that pay per month or per quarter?
Yeah.
Or how does that pay?
Yeah. So MusicBed's a monthly payout. The lion's share of MusicBed is subscription, plus like a healthy-ish number of single use, I would say. So that could be anywhere from like $50 a license to maybe up to a couple $1,000. And then the minority at MusicBed is definitely like the boutique higher end things, like the Toyota deal I just got.
Gotcha.
That, like, they definitely can happen. But yeah, MusicBed, the deal has changed. It's gotten worse, like we could say. But if you're doing high quality music, and I think that's the thing, like whether you're doing libraries, whether you're doing a little bit more like I am with licensing reps, the reality is sync has become more competitive post-COVID.
Oh, sure.
I was in the game before COVID. I've been in the game after COVID. Like, just to shoot you straight, sync is more competitive. So I think like the best thing you can do is just set your bar so like extraordinarily high and like objective. Like the thing is post-COVID, A-list artists are gunning for spots and their teams are gunning for spots like they never were before. And so like you objectively have to look. Like if you're doing a funk disco type of song, let's say, is it objectively as good as Sabrina Carpenter Espresso? Because if it's not, like, you can't be mad. It's like taking the ownership and putting it on yourself as opposed to putting it on the machine of the library, the whatever. And I know these places aren't perfect and it can be rough out there, but like we can't control that stuff at the end of the day. All we can control is how good of music we make. So,
and to be fair, I see a definite difference between MusicBed and Artlist or Motion Array. As a matter of fact, Artlist and Motion Array look almost exactly the same. They offer the same kind of things: templates, footage, SFX. They're really. I think they're probably a little bit harder to get into, and a little bit also. Where does it say? It said it somewhere. Music by world-class artists. So you can tell. I've always felt like Artlist, if you take the L out, it just is artist. And so I've always felt like it was an artist-based thing versus Music Array, which is a subscription place to get a bunch of decent quality stuff for your videos for YouTube. But I don't know if that's how I see a different thing between. And there are other ones besides MusicBed and Artlist that kind of fall in this category, but I can see what you mean about MusicBed for sure. Okay, that's all the time I want to spend on stock. We've already talked about how Pond 5 has cut down what they're offering and what they're doing as far as how much they're paying people, which is now only 30%. Used to be 35% just a few weeks ago. And then before that, it was 40%. Before that was 50%, And so Audio Jungle is probably the best deal of all, but it's still only 45% to the composer and it's a 45 55 split with 55 going to Artlist unless you're exclusive there. So I don't know, and I think I think people are going more towards the higher end type stuff. And here's the other thing, and we're not going to get into this, but I think AI is figuring into how people are downloading assets to use in their videos. As a video maker myself for clients, I know when I use Envato Elements, I find about half what I'm looking for, and the rest I make at an AI site called Leonardo.ai, which is like Midjourney. And I can type in what I'm looking for, a piano in a forest. Well, that's much easier to make with AI than it is to find in a library, even like Artlist or whatever. So I'm afraid that 2025 is going to be the really decline of stock. Just like, I bet you, I don't know the numbers, but I would bet you stock videos and stock pictures have really faced some downsides as people like my wife or like me as a professional go onto these sites and make my own things with AI because it works better for what I'm trying to do.
So with that, like, what's going to continue to stand out? Only the highest quality stuff. So like, that's what we can control, guys. Like, we can control how good we get at our skill and just getting a little bit better on every single song and setting our bar up here and doing whatever it takes to hit it. So I don't know.
Yeah,
that's where I'm at.
The problem with Motion Array is that they kind of work on a staff picks type of thing, and it looks like I did some looking into it the other day, and it looks like the staff picks are mostly non-PRO. They like not necessarily content ID restricted, but PRO restricted. Whereas so that people can say no PRO stuff. I only want stuff that I don't have to worry about PRO stuff with. I want truly royalty-free stuff. So, and then there are the places like what's the one that doesn't even let you put music in there if you are if you're with any PRO, not the songs with a PRO, but you are with a PRO. Somebody shout out the name of that place, or don't. I can't remember who they are.
That would probably be a line of a bad deal for me. I would probably call that one bad.
I would even consider it, and it's slipping my mind right now, but it's a very popular one. As a matter of fact, all the YouTubers, they're doing the ads for this particular place. I can't remember the name of it, but they're the ones that are talking about this place, but you can't get in there if your song's in a PRO, but if you are in a PRO. Who is not going to get in a PRO to put music on a stock site? I do not understand.
Insane.
But somebody will tell me here in a minute on the show. All right, so let's move on to what I really want to talk about today, which is sync music deals and how they work differently for the two of us. I always, I talk to a lot of people, and a lot of people who follow me have always been in the library space, from watching people like Jesse on Sync My Music, which is and he's great at it, and he's made a lot of money on it. And then there are people who watch my show and are in my Discord who make multiple six figures just feeding libraries every single day, doing briefs and or just putting new songs up or making albums for them. And they amass thousands of songs, and those thousands of songs continue to make them a lot of money. It's a much lower pressure thing than having to go to someone, knock on a door, and find a music supervisor that needs the thing you have at that moment, or working briefs where it's a little bit more. That's also a little bit more of a hard road, because you have to work for a client basically and give them exactly what they want, versus just having the thing and send it to your rep and saying, hey, what do you think of this? Can you use it for anything you got right now? So why don't you explain a little bit how I talk on this channel all the time about how I feed exclusive libraries, and we'll talk about the deals with those in a minute. But I think since you're here, I'd like to get your thoughts on the direct deal in Sync and how that began for you, and exclusivity, and I'll ask you some questions as we go.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, my background is as a producer and songwriter first. Like, anytime I say artist, I never had aspirations to be be a front man, like be out there, like playing that game at all. So like, I always just wanted to be the dude sitting in the studio making the songs. And that's my background. And so, yeah. So I really like what a lot of my stuff for sync is these days is I make songs, whether it's for one of my artist projects, contradictory to what I just said a few minutes ago. I now have multiple artist projects, or if it's collaborating with some of my friends' other artist projects that are legit artist projects, we will go make songs for one of those projects with sync at the forefront of our mind. And then I have she's exclusive in terms of the songs I give her, which is the vast majority of my work. Her name's Katie Jellin. Her company is Honestly Good Music. And she just takes on those songs and pitches them for all sorts of opportunities that come across her desk, which is TV, film, ads, promos, trailers, the whole thing. She's working, a whole bunch of stuff at all times. It's Katie, and then another person named Millie. Millie was at Warner Chappell for a long time, and Katie was at Warner Chappell and Secret Road before that. So I got connected with Katie when she was at Warner Chappell years ago through a good friend and frequent collaborator of mine, Brandon Ray, and then we connected and stayed in touch, and she repped some of my stuff. Then when she went out on her own to start her own company, she reps pretty much all my stuff exclusively, aside from the music bed stuff for the most part. And so what those deals look like is you go write a song with sync in mind, hand it off to her, and it's a split. The standard ranges for those deals are typically 75-25 in the artist's favor, all the way up to 60-40, I would say, is the common range. Some people are trying to do 50-50 and are doing it.
And that 60-40 is the sync side, right?
That is for a sync placement. So this is where I know it gets a little different than libraries, because so it's a sync comes in. Let's say $10,000 comes in on a placement for round numbers, and I did it 100% myself. And we're not talking about PROs on the back end. $10,000 for a sync fee comes in, and let's say my deal is 75-25 in my favor. $10,000 will get paid to the licensing rep. She'll keep $2,500. She'll pay me $7,500. Then I still own all my writer share with BMI, who I'm affiliated with, and I still own, because I'm no longer in a publishing deal, but have been before. I own all my publisher share, and then, if that song goes on to do whatever it does, depending on the terms of broadcast, in 6-9 months, a year, whatever, I'll see all the writer share and publisher share. Or if it's a co-write, I did 50-50, my 50% writer share and publishing share on the PRO. So that's,
and this is where things really change from the library, feed the library route, where you're going to, they are signing a normal, what we would call a normal publishing deal that a publisher would sign you to and take all the publishing. They would take 100% of the publishing, you would get 100% of the writers, and you would split any sync fees that might come in. The sync fees on the library side are not like sync fees like you're talking about, because sync fees come in, and while you can ask your library what came in, let me see the books, no one does that. And so how are you going to know that the $300, $500, $1,000 of sync fees is really half of what they got? And also, when you're working with a library that's like with BMG or Warner Chappell or something, Warner Chappell is taking their cut, and then it's going to the sub-library who is splitting it half and half with you. So it's a whole different deal than a straight deal. Now, here's my question for you with that $10,000 scenario. How many of those are coming in at a time, and how many do you work on at a time?
So this is where, kind of going back to the not chasing briefs, like I am building a catalog of music at any given time. So when I'm doing my one song for the quota this week, I know I'm shooting for this target that's going to be either with this project of my own, or my own with a collaborator, or with a friend, and I'm going to hand that off to the person. Like, not sometimes there'll be like, hey, and I've had a few things land this way where it's like, hey, this brand needs a song like this week. Can you do it? And I'll take a shot at it, and that doesn't guarantee I'm going to get it. And more times than not, honestly, you don't land it, but then sometimes you do. But for the most part, a normal week is I just make my song, again, with sync in mind, knowing, okay, these types of things.
That term right there that you keep saying, I've been trying to drill this into people's heads for about 2 years. We write songs, and now when I work with artists who aren't interested in sync, I still make them think that way. All right, let's write the song, but let's not make it so pointed towards a your boyfriend, that it could be useful for a lot of uses other than just, a song to a boyfriend. It's got, with sync in mind means a lot of things, but mainly what it means is it's very useful for a lot of uses down the road.
Yeah.
Maybe a specific use for one time, but it could also be useful down the road over and over. So even when we're writing for libraries, we think that way.
And it's like, yeah, and I think like how you figure out like what you're shooting towards is like, hey, go watch a bunch of ads, go watch a bunch of trailers, promos, whatever, and then figure out what you naturally do well, or maybe you plus a collaborator, what the combination of you guys naturally does well, and then figure out, okay, we already do this thing, so if we just put an ad hat on, we saw these songs in 10 different ads that all kind of have the same feel. Well, what if we just did that? So that's what I mean when I say keeping sync in mind. So I'm doing my songs, handing them off to my licensing rep, and then doing, as somebody who's strategic and calculated and all that, doing the very best I can to just get those songs out of my mind, not be precious about them, move on. Because guys, like, in order to make good money in sync in music, it is an incremental consistency over time game. I do multiple six figures a year from nothing other than music at age 30. There's not one giant earth-shattering hit. Paying for that, I dropped out of college 10 years ago with no money and didn't know how I was going to do it. So I'm here to tell, like, I just say all that to say, like, it is 100% possible, but don't think you're going to write one song or two songs or three songs and it's going to happen for you. Like, you have to be so incredibly long-term minded and delay gratification and write a song. Even if you think it's the best song you've ever written, write it, hand it off to your people, enjoy it for a day and move on and go do another one.
That's why this question right here that we got from Swift says, hi, I'm from Norway. I'm an assets creator for Line 6, entering my 6th year. I'm also a songwriter, audio engineer, producer. How lucrative sync licensing can be in 2025? Well, that's not it's very, but the problem is you can't think of it like, how much am I going to make in 2025? Because it may take a while to build that up, like years to build to that point. You didn't just jump into this on day one and say, I'm going to start making sync money. You produced for years before that happened.
Yeah, produced for years, got my skills up. Like I listened to stuff I did for labels for hire as recent as a few years ago, and I'm like, holy cow, I'm so like I would have produced that same song so much better today because I've worked on I've spent how many hours since then working to just continue to get better, and then that comes
more God particle, right?
More. I do like God Particle, although I'm getting away from the limiter on God Particle a little bit because some of my mixed buddies who were smarter than me told me to. But yeah, it's it is your question of how lucrative can sync be. Extraordinarily, I know tons of people, multiple six figures a year, sync alone, but they have put in their reps, they've put in their 10,000 plus hours. They're world-class songwriters, world-class producers. So I think you have to know that if that's what you aspire to do, one, it's possible, but you got to set your bar really, really, really high for your work, and just don't lower the standard for your songwriting, production, mix, master, every single part of that.
The quality's got to come first before quantity.
Oh yeah,
you've got to have that quality before you even think about quantity. Now, when you've been talking about a sync rep a lot on this, and by sync rep, just so everybody knows, that is just also means sync agent. It's the same kind of a person. And everyone asks me this same question: where do I find a sync agent? I mean, we can really tell them how to find sync libraries because you literally just do a Google search for libraries that and you find them. But I have found sync agents, sync reps to be much more hard to find, not advertising themselves maybe as much, except for the people who are doing YouTube content about it. Because I don't, and of course it's not something that I've really gone after, because I don't produce from the artist's perspective all the time. Sometimes I write, I'm probably about half and half vocal music versus instrumental music, but even that I'm writing an album of wrote jukebox country music, and it's a very focused album of stuff. And from what I understand, and here's the biggest question I have for you about sync reps. Do you think you're more attractive to them because you are a producer / artist in a way like Timbaland is, or in a way like, and you have a artist brand, and that is a little bit more attractive to them than you just come in saying, "Hey, I'm a producer and I've got some songs," or do you think it matters to them?
Well, I would say I actually really started more as the first one where, hey, I'm a producer and I have some songs, but like it's me plus this artist and they're the artist. We just split the thing 50-50. And then since then, like me, so like one of my artist projects is called Outskirts. It started as me and my buddy just writing songs, the two of us, for hype sports, anthemic rock. And it was only sync focused at first. We got a couple placements, started putting the thing out to streaming, and very strategically have grown that to hundreds of thousands of monthly listeners. So like that was an accidental artist project that was like, hey, well, we have a batch, me and this other guy have a batch of songs. Like, let's do that. I have another project, Christian, Christivn, because you got to spell things like a trendy hipster, right?
Look how you do. You look very trendy there.
A buddy of mine who does styling made us look cooler than we are. I put on a costume for a day. It's something. And my wife built the website. Shout out to bandsites.co for.
Oh, to have hair.
It's starting to go gray because I have a 1-year-old now, but he's made me sprout a few back here. But at least I got it. And yeah, I have another project, Christian, where me and a girl did like 5 covers, and then I put my song on a voice that ended up in a movie, like that. Just like I put under that moniker. But I don't think what initially made me attractive to sync agents was an artist project, because I didn't have that. I would say it was just a consistent volume. Like it was enough of a body of work that was high quality. Of here's these songs that are high quality, high bar. And I would say if you want to find a sync agent, a sync rep, like I have, you said they don't really advertise, but you can find all the ones that come to mind that sort of are like the main players in that game. I don't want to give out their names because I don't want them to get a bunch of spam emails, but the people in Nashville and LA with a little Google search or Chat GPT or whatever, you can find them. But I want you to think about this before you hit these people up. Always think about hitting someone up for your music from a place of how can I add value to them, not how can I be an annoyance to this person and be one of the other 100 people that are knocking on their door saying, hey, I need something from you. I have a song. Can you take it on? And putting like all the ownership on this person for making your career happen. So my friend Katie at Honestly Good Music, she told me, I don't know what the current stats are, but maybe about a year ago now, she said, just so you know, like, because we're friends and she was saying this, she's like, I have 50 new submissions from people right now wanting me to rep their music that I haven't even listened to yet. Yeah. So in addition to taking care of her current roster and pitching for spots that are coming in all the time, she has, 50 things sitting in the queue right here. So if you're one of that 50 in the queue for the person, think about how can I add as much value as humanly possible to this person, and think really honestly to yourself. Like, is my music great? Like, is it, take your bias and your ego and all of that out of it. Like, is it as good as the stuff landing the spots that you hope to land?
I've always,
and if it's not, that's cool. Just know that it can be. Like, the crap I did not all that like 5-6 years ago was like not that good, but the beautiful thing is like you can get good at the skill of making music. You just have to be okay with playing the long game and putting in your reps.
And wouldn't you say that 90% of what they're going to choose is likely going to include vocals?
Yeah, I'd say the vast majority, and even
they're not looking for
only
composer hip hop or orchestral hip hop instrumentals,
For the most part, no. Like I have and that's where I would say Music Bed is different. Music Bed is fine with instrumental only. Yep. Like I have a SoFi ad that's been running for a year now, and it was an instrumental only. You would hear it and probably think it was the library track, but it was actually a song with a vocalist on it at first that they just used the instrumental. So
of course,
the sync reps are much more likely to want a song plus the instrumental.
But they're going to want a face maybe to put together with that song probably.
Yeah, even if it's not like you have to go be like, One Republic, the biggest band in the world, sure. Even if it's just like a moniker. But as more and more time goes on, it's like the thing I did with Outskirts. It's like, okay, well, we already did the work and we built these songs and we put it under this fake name Outskirts that we spelled incorrectly on purpose. And so let's go put it out there on Spotify. Then we put a song out there on Spotify, and like all new artists, it got like 0 streams in the first 10 minutes. So we're like, okay, well, what do we do about this? And we're like, it's like when you've already done the work of making the songs, like in some ways that's like the hard work's done. So what if you just spend a little bit of time being strategic and learning to grow the stream? So that's where like sync and streaming and growing a brand. And then like what's cool now is people like with Outskirts alone, we got an email from a library this week hitting us up saying, what do we have to do to get you in our library? And we're not going to take it on because we already have a better deal in place.
Sure.
But if you go create your own brand, people will then start to find you. Or even if, I connected directly with a music supervisor this week. I sent him a DM on Instagram because I found out his agency had licensed one of my songs before. It's like this value add thing. And I said, hey, thank you so much. And we went back and forth a little bit. And at the end I said, hey, like you've already used my music before, but if I could ever be of help for you again, like never hesitate to reach out, even if it's last minute, whatever. And he's like, absolutely, will do. I think the vibe of that was a lot different than like maybe sending a cold email of like, let me knock on your door. Like, so you just have to think about like how you're approaching them and genuinely be looking to add value to those people. And if you can do that, like I think a misconception about the music industry is it's like closed off and everybody already has all the people they want and like are never looking to add talent. It actually couldn't be further from the truth. Everybody's always looking for the next thing and always looking for the shiny new toy and the new guy, the new girl, whatever it is. So if you can be that person, amazing. It's just kind of about how you... Oh man.
Anyway,
you're gonna have fun with this. That's a little bit of my rant on it. So,
well, no, and I love it, and I've ranted many times, and whenever anybody comes on here talking about that, I mean, there's no question. I think if you are someone who is in your position where you have a sync rep, the odds for higher money are, at least on a song by song basis, are obvious, because they're coming in with larger. I've heard another sync agent call it like, the way they look for songs in the first one is that the music supervisor goes to her people, like her friends and the people that she knows. And the second place is she goes to a sync agent and says, I've got 10 grand. And how do I, do you have anything like this? And the third place is that she goes to a music library because she's only got $500 left and it's tomorrow that they have to turn everything in. Yeah. And so that's the priority of how. And I think the other problem is that most people who are doing licensing are not thinking about their end client. They're not thinking about the first end client, which is the person who wants the song, be it a library or a sync rep. Then the sync rep has to deliver it to a music supervisor, and they're not thinking about them, and they're not thinking about the director, and they're not thinking about the person sitting at home, how they're going to enjoy that music behind that scene. They're just thinking, I made this music. It's great. And I think there's a video coming up about who are you really serving, and it's not just trying to get a music library or a music rep to love your stuff. It's like, how is it going to work all the way through the process?
You're so right. So dead on with that. Couldn't agree more.
But I love the fact that you're pushing the artist brand thing, because one of the problems that I've had on this channel is getting people to be interested in streaming their music, because they're thinking, hey, if I'm putting it in a library, why do I need to put it on streaming? And to be honest, libraries don't want you to as much these days, because they're going to. Libraries are starting, in the past 2 years especially, my BMG library and several other libraries they're asking me not to put it on Spotify first.
Fascinating.
Because they are going to put it on Spotify and want that little bucket of money. Everybody wants every bucket of money. Same with Content ID. They don't want you to put it on Content ID because they are going to put it into Content ID to make sure.
Are they just collecting a small percentage?
Yeah, all those mechanicals and everything are split with the composer or the person who's on the other side of the deal. But I think, getting back to one more question about the sync rep thing. If I do things right, I could get hundreds of songs into libraries. Now, whether they be used or not, who knows, and the deal won't be as good. You would look at this year and think, how many songs would you get into some kind of sync deal? like over the course of the year? 50, since you want to do one a week? Would that be best case?
Yeah, I mean, I would say they all will go to someone, whether it be Music Bed or my friend Katie, or in the Outlier, I'm working with a artist friend that maybe has their own version of Katie, and we just give it all one stop to them. But yeah, pretty much everything. But I also know that every single one of those songs, for the most part, is going to go out live to streaming. Like next week, I'm doing a session with my friend. He's got a great YouTube channel too. Rapper Manifest. He has a channel called Smart Music Business. Yeah. So we're doing a thing. We've done a few songs. We're doing a thing that we're going to target for sync, but we also know that it's going to come out to streaming, and he has 500,000 monthly listeners or whatever it is. And like our worst case scenario is we will make some money on streaming. And that's maybe a difference in sync rep, sync agent versus library, where libraries are like, don't go put it out there.
Yeah.
The sync agents are like, please go put it out there. Go build your brand, because that's only going to help us.
Yeah. And then you get the double whammy of not only of getting your following on Spotify listing, but everybody Shazamming the song once it's on TV. And they're like, this is a cool song. I just had this happen to me. I had a Love is Blind placement right at the top of the show, and they loved, and I still get Shazams all the time for that song. And it just shows you the power of streaming alongside that. And so, yeah, I see that. And I have no problem. And if you've got a good situation like that, where you have someone who really loves your music, and every time you're creating something, you're saying, hey, what do you think of this one before I send it to Music Bed, or, do this? Are you interested in this? Do you send the song to Katie and just say, what do you think? You got any uses for this? What's the conversation there?
Well, if Katie's watching, she'll tell me what she thinks, even if I don't ask. And she's married to a producer as well, who he's a buddy, and he's like, yeah, so Music Bed, their process is, it's kind of, you just go do the song and you upload it. Katie will usually sometimes give a small note or two. She knows I have a really, really high bar, and I'm not going to waste her time like giving her something that's less than done. Sometimes she'll have a small mix tweak. It's very rarely at this point like, hey, go overhaul the whole thing. Yeah. But yeah, like earlier on, or if I know she's working with a newer artist or a producer, she'll be much more collaborative. So yeah.
Well, cool, man. I'm going to stop it there. I mean, we're at 116, so I want to, because this is a lot for people to process, I think, and we could have just talked about that only, but I really do appreciate that one person had. How involved are you in Content ID at all?
Like my music being registered for Content ID.
Yeah, or is that taken care of by other people?
Like other people collect it, like Music Bed will collect on the Music Bed songs. I do make some money from Content ID.
Who do you use?
I think is it AdRev? Is that one?
AdRev? Okay. Yeah.
Music Bed uses AdRev, so on all those songs they do it, and then my stuff with various distributors I have, like I work with 3 or 4 different distributors on the project, they collect.
I have an opinion on this or a theory, and Mirage here says the same thing. I believe Content ID is working less effectively than it's ever worked before, because I think people are understanding how to clear any claims that they might get. Most of these places allow you, especially Music Bed would be a place. Don't they operate royalty free, supposedly, kind of a little bit?
For Content ID, they do some, but then I've had I had a quarter this year where several $1,000s showed up in Content ID, and I was like, what the heck's this for? Because I know if you have a subscription with them as a content creator, like they automatically clear your stuff for Content ID. Yes. That's part of what you're paying for. And I asked my rep, I kind of didn't want to draw attention to it, because I was like, is this a mistake?
He's not going to take it back.
And I was like, where did this come from? And apparently, like, this blows my mind that these brands don't even care. But apparently, like if a bigger brand or company licenses your stuff, like just for like a cheap online only spot, like they don't care about Content ID claims. Like, I guess if you're a giant tech company or a car company or whatever, like, even if the spot's only a few $100s or whatever for their YouTube channel, they don't even care about getting the claim cleared. So we see some of that. And happy to answer any other questions at the end if anyone's got them.
Yeah. If you're going to throw them in, because we're just about done here.
Yeah.
I do want to real quickly just remind you guys that you can find out more about Christian at his channel. His free stuff is on here. And I do want to show that to you just real quick, because I offer a lot of free stuff, and I think it's important to give people free resources in this business, because we have so many people who are trying to just sell people on $2,000, $5,000 courses. It's just crazy. And I like to give people things to do, but he's got a lot of his stuff, your channel is, you have fed the algorithm into production stuff. So, he's got a free mixing cheat sheet here, a mixed bus cheat sheet, something he calls Financial Freedom Framework, which is pretty cool. Talking about short-term, mid-term, long-term success. And just so you know, Christian is not like the sync guy. He is not necessarily just talking about that, because he is so. We could get into his income, and maybe we will in another show. We'll compare our sync, our full income personally, in pie charts or whatever, because I think you'd be very interested in that. But you can go to christianhale.co and find all of these lovely PDFs to download and be part of his circle, how to hack your calendar, all the things that people ask me about, Spotify stuff. And I'm so glad, one of the things I'm really glad about with having Christian on the podcast is that he's bringing up the importance of Spotify for all of us, because this is, again, something that's really hard to get people to do who are really focused on licensing, because they see Spotify as a distraction of not much money and all that kind of stuff. And probably a lot of them are feeding libraries who might chafe against putting your music up on streaming, which you may not know is a thing, but it is a thing. And like you said, it's kind of like backwards from working with sync reps. They want every bit of attention that they can get for that song being in there.
No doubt. I think one final thing I have, for one, thanks for having me on. So great to talk with you. And I think we said it a few times, but you're doing one thing with music and making a living with it. I'm doing another thing with music, even with sync, like a totally different thing than you, and making a living with it. So I think the encouraging thing to the listener, to the viewer here, is making money in music is such a possibility. Making a good, sustainable, full-time living is possible. There's so many ways to do it, and just because you see one person doing it this way doesn't mean that's how you have to do it. You get to find what works for you and your lifestyle, your unique skill sets, and go make it happen. So
there's one secret we haven't talked about as far as how we make a good amount of income, but we will on another show. I'm not going to spoil it, but it has nothing to do with anything we've talked about really today. But there is one income that is also very hard to talk people into, especially people who are producing lots of music. And we'll talk about that at some point, because I know it's one of the ways you make music income, and it is certainly one of the ways I do as well. So, well, man, thanks for being here. Go to Christian's site, get free stuff. Go to makemusicincome.com/free and get free stuff. And I appreciate everybody being here for this, and everybody listening to this on the podcast. I think you'll have some great driving time and information. So thanks, Christian, man. We'll be talking to you, bud. We'll be talking to you soon. Everybody go check out his YouTube channel. You'll find all those links down below. And we will see you next time here on the Make Music Income podcast. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day. We'll see you.